You seem hungry. Good thing your table is ready with Saturday Omaha.
Saturday Omaha.
Eat this.
Hey, this is Dave with Saturday, and we are sitting in studio with another guest because that's what we do. We've been doing this show for like 6 years plus, so we have guests. We talk about food, things we do, but this guest's voice may sound familiar to you because he has been on our show before. But tis a new season. It's early in the year as we speak here, and I have Tim Fonfara on from Omaha Urban Farmer. Tim, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Dave?
I am doing very well. Well, welcome back.
Yes, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, this is awesome. So we had kind of been corresponding periodically just to kind of check in and see all the things that were kind of going on, and it's like, oh hey, we've got new things sprouting and things happening. So we thought we'd check in, but I guess if I can peel back the timeline just a little bit, I believe that you had some pretty heavy damage during the summer type time frame with all the hail and things like that, because we had a huge hailstorm. So what happened to the farm at that point in time?
So it's been a wild year for 24. Everybody probably remembers in the spring when we had that pretty rough tornadoes, record tornadoes
That's right.
that tore up the end of Elkhorn there.
Yeah.
And then besides that, the season started out great in terms of the rain and precipitation. So, and then once it hit about the summer mark, summer kicked off with a hailstorm right as I was just starting to harvest some of our lettuce, and I did get a little bit out, but the hail came, and so we got shredded lettuce. And so
Naturally, artisan natural shredded lettuce.
So I guess it's Taco Tuesday that week, but it is heartbreaking when it happens because you put a lot of effort and a lot of love into growing your stuff there. But we made it through, and then it turned the other direction, and we had about 3 months of just solid drought where the water turned off, and then we had that hurricane that rolled through. I think that was about August time frame, and we took some pretty significant damage from that. A tree in the front completely uprooted, took out the power line on the way down, ripped it out from the roof. So everything had to be reattached and rewired and all that. And we were offline for probably about 2 weeks for that period. So yeah, it was pretty rough.
So you've experienced, with the exception of just fire dropping down from the sky, you've probably got just about every other natural disaster Omaha has to offer.
Yeah, that's probably next on the list, but
Wow. So I forgot about the tornado. That's right, because that really appeared, usually in Omaha proper, we don't typically get a lot of direct drop-ins from tornadoes, but that actually came in right through the city in part. So wow. So did what at that time, let's see, that was in spring then, and then with the hail in the summer. So I guess maybe this might help give some context to folks that maybe haven't listened to our prior conversation.
Sure.
Let's get a little overview of the farm, because I'm coming from the knowledge of, hey, we've talked before, but you have both indoor and outdoor. So kind of what is the setup for the Omaha Urban Farmer, so people know?
Right. So our indoor component is largely our microgreens with some herbs and stuff inside too. And it's also kind of our R&D with new stuff that we try growing, or if we can grow it indoors kind of deal. And that's all year round. So, but a lot of what we've been growing lately is a lot of cilantro. We've done micro carrots, plus some of the other ones that are more common, like the broccoli and the radish and purple radish and things like that. So, yeah, it's just kind of a hodgepodge with the indoor component, and then the seasonal outdoors part is we have some fruit-bearing trees, we have some walnut trees, and then we have I planted a fig tree last year, so we'll see if it survived the winter. They're usually pretty hardy. And then a couple years ago, I planted some various apple trees. and then some cold hardy apricots too on the property. So it's the big fancy word. This is kind of a mouthful. Silvo horticulture.
Oh, do tell.
It's to put it really simple, it's a way to biodiversify, and trees do various different things. They contribute a lot to the biome and in the long term of the biome. They're also windbreaks. They provide a lot of natural cover for like shade if you want to do like different things like lettuce around, and you got to strategically plant them on the property, and that's kind of what we've been doing. And we already kind of had some stuff set up, and so we kind of already had a natural windbreak with some of the trees and stuff, so I just kind of started to add more. I'm hoping for this season to clear out some more of the foliage and add some cherry trees possibly. Maybe some sugar maple too is a possibility too. So yeah.
Wow. So with all the natural disasters kind of attacking the outdoor farm, and I guess without electricity and things attacking the indoor farm, there as it goes, were you able to have a decent harvest at times, or I guess with things kind of growing all year round, kind of how did last year go in adapting to all of those crazy things that kind of hit the farm there?
It certainly was a roller coaster ride. We did get some seasonal stuff. The green beans survived pretty well. We did get a little bit of tomatoes. I think we got a few carrots, some radishes throughout the season, a little bit of lettuce. I think that was about it off the top of my head that I can recall. So, yeah.
Were there any that you just totally lost out on that you would usually have but got hit so bad that you couldn't recover?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the lettuce crop that I planted was pretty significant. It was probably anywhere from a $3,000 to $5,000 loss. Wow. Yeah. I had it. I was ready to harvest it, and it just got completely trashed.
That has to hurt because you have a lot of head end work there, getting the land ready and things planted and watching things grow and come up, and then you're like, and I'm gonna harvest it, and then I'm not. Like,
yeah. I mean, it was kind of funny. I guess it was kind of farmer's intuition that I had a feeling that there's gonna be some rough stuff getting thrown. It didn't totally surprise me, but it's always very heartbreaking when it happens, because it's not the first time that's happened either. The first couple of years that we started we had some pretty significant hail, and I think that was 22, and where we had like a late spring, early summer hail, and I had some sugar snap peas planted, and they're very succulent, and so the hail just trashed them. They didn't really come back from that.
Are there particular crops that are more nasty weather resistant? Obviously, the sugar snap peas, were a little more sensitive there, but were there things that kind of bounced back maybe better than some of the other ones?
Yeah, I've noticed green beans are pretty hardy if you trellis them. They bounce back pretty well, and they're actually a really nice crop to work with because as you're harvesting them, you're naturally pruning them, so you're stimulating them to grow more until basically it freezes. The other ones off the top of my head that I can think, I mean, carrots, we had some carrots, but also deer pressure was another thing that I forgot to mention. We had one particular deer, it was a doe that kept showing up, and it was certainly not intimidated by a human presence. I got about within 20 feet of the doe and was there on the regular, just like, oh, it's a buffet, and let's eat all the food that they can. So yeah, that is also very upsetting to any farmer or anybody that's trying to grow. But what did happen, I noticed, I went out one day and I saw that two of the tomato plants had been chewed on. One was half gone, and the other one probably about a quarter or so. And if you know anything about tomato plants, that's in the nightshade family. So the foliage is very toxic, and so that's what you call natural selection. I did not see that deer after that.
Gotcha. So whether it got an upset stomach or whatever happened,
if it survived that, which I don't know if it did or not, but I didn't see it after that.
I'll, I am going to put deer pressure in my lexicon somewhere. I haven't heard that before. I was like, did he say peer pressure? No, he said deer pressure. So
Yeah. So yeah, when the deer come, they'll often refer to it as like deer pressure.
from a protection perspective from pests, be that little crawly things or things that walk on four legs or et cetera, how do you do your best to make sure that your crop can survive not only the physical hazards of hail, but deer pressure and other bug pressure?
Sure. I mean, like rabbits would be another concern that might be chewing on, depending on which crop it is. But we found a very efficient, non-toxic, non-lethal, which is Irish Spring soap. Which is an odor deterrent for, especially for rabbits, usually for deer, but if the deer would kind of push through it too at times, but it's really going to keep the rabbits away. So we kind of jerry-rigged solo cups with a mesh net, and we cut the soap up into quarters, and then we put it in the mesh. And it'll actually last the entire season with the solo cup to keep it from getting washed out. And you want to use the original formula if you're thinking about doing that. Sometimes you hear people of using it, but they'll go and take the shavings and throw it out. That only lasts about a day, so you want to fix it so it's going to last you the whole season. Works great, keeps the rabbits away. You don't have to worry about using other methods like introducing a poison or trying to hunt them out or getting your dog to keep them out, which may or may not work. So, but we found that it's 90+% efficient with using that. So.
That's fantastic, and I would assume reasonably cost effective there.
Yeah, just go down to the dollar store. You can find all your materials there, depending on how many you want to put out. Don't be afraid to stake more if you need in a concentrated area. Just guarantee you success. But I think we spend like $40 in materials for that.
Roughly how much land does the urban farmer farm out there that you have to cover, give or take a little bit?
I think we did roughly 3/4 to an acre last year. I'm going to expand on that for this upcoming season. We'll see if we can get to about 1.5 acres, maybe 2, depending on what we all get in the ground. I'm hoping to get some watermelons and stuff in the ground, some pumpkins too, maybe some cabbage and some other things like that too. So a lot is going to depend on how cooperative the weather is in the next 2 months. And what I can do outdoors, and a lot of it, pretty much nearly all of it, I have to do myself because my wife is still working. So
Sure. Yeah, no doubt. Well, so real quick, kind of summarizing the Irish Spring, the contraption or device. So a solo cup, a quarter of a bar of soap in there, and then a metal mesh top, and then like some water, or like
you can get the mesh bags at the dollar store too.
Oh, okay.
I don't recommend using metal just because it's probably going to cost you more, but
Sure.
They have the mesh bags. You can put them in there and then you just tie it off, and then you can either glue it, retrofit it like on the top there, just like it sits like a lamp
Okay.
in the field there, and then you can use like kebab sticks or something like similar just to stake it in the ground, so it'll sit a couple inches off the ground and it'll be a nice odor deterrent. They absolutely cannot stand it. So
Wow, like reverse aromatherapy
Yeah.
for the wildlife.
Yeah.
Well, and then if there's any shiny deer that smell like Irish Spring, you know that maybe it was there and is no longer there anymore.
I have seen the raccoons will get kind of bold with it, and like after a while they get very annoyed with it. And they'll try to attack it and eat it, and so they'll literally like bite into it and figure out what it is and then spit it out.
Gotcha. So if it's foaming at the mouth, but it smells like Irish Spring,
Yeah.
it might not be rabbit. It might just be eating soap. So wild. So okay. Well, I'm glad that you were able to recover some things too. When there's an impending storm, and we're not going to stay on storms for the whole show, but I'm just curious. Are there things that you can physically cover with a dome or tarp or anything to help, or is it just kind of like, man, this is 3/4 of an acre of land, and just whatever nature decides to throw at you, we will wait and see?
It's really just depends on the nature of the storm. Unless it's really, really high wind or really, really big hail. If it's the small stuff, it's usually going to be okay. But yeah, it just depends. I mean, it's a crapshoot gamble. Like, you never know what's going to get thrown at you. That's the risk you take. I mean, you can do low running tunnels, high running tunnels, but those can also get damaged too. They may or may not protect your crop depending on the nature of the storm and whatnot. So, yeah, you hope and pray.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. You're kind of at the mercy of the weather. And, right now, like you were mentioning, in the fall, I think, it being dry, it's been, at least in my opinion, it seems to be very dry lately here. We haven't had hardly any snow as of this recording, not much rain.
Yeah.
So.
It's been super dry, even for this winter season, which I had the feeling that was going to be the case. They just said this is going to be one of those mundane, dry grass, snow, 35 degrees most of the time kind of deal. And here we are.
Yeah, because as of this recording, us sitting here, I don't think either of us had gloves or hats or anything coming in here. No winter gear anyway. It's like, because it's 40 or 50 outside and no snow as we record this. Well, what's sitting in the ground now, if anything, starting there, and then we'll talk about the indoor as well.
Well, nothing's in the ground right now, so in the next couple months, if February is looking good, we'll start breaking ground a little bit, weather pending, and I don't want to do it too early because I take an account for the biome. You don't want to leave it open and exposed more than it has to, and because it's so dry, it's already very strenuous on the biome right now, so it's basically kind of on a lifeline. So breaking the ground without any moisture in it is just going to be a lot more detrimental to maintaining a healthy biome for that. So right now we're just really focusing on the indoor stuff with our microgreens. A lot of what I do, because I have to do the marketing end and the business end of it, which means shaking hands, growing what we have to grow for our farmers markets. And I don't know if you know this or not, Dave, but there is a winter farmers market that we are in. And oh my gosh, don't tell the other ones, but it's the best one of the year.
What? Okay, where? Because I'm used to, for our Omaha listeners, of course, you have Exarban's a big one downtown, and then I think Papillion has one as well, typically off of tell me about the winter one.
So the winter one is currently at Nebraska Brewing Company.
Oh, okay.
Across from Rutella's off 108th and Harrison there. This is their third year doing it, and they've upped the schedule to the second and fourth Sunday of every month from 11 to 3. It's all indoors. Lots of different local vendors that you see there. You can get your brewskis while you're there.
Yeah.
There's usually food trucks there. There's one vendor that I don't know if it's the in-house or a separate vendor. They have it's a bacon Bloody Mary margarita thing.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, and it's real popular. But it's just a great time all around. Atmosphere is by far, in terms of things to do, that is arguably the best one.
Well, and they have pinball machines in there too. Last time I checked, so you could always do that.
So you can do that too.
Well, so how many months does the winter one run?
So that runs November through April.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we're going to flow, once that one's over, we'll flow into the regular season too. So it's nice for us because there's something to do even in the technical winter season. So we're hitting the markets all year round. So
wow. Okay. So as of this recording, and you were kind enough to bring some things in studio, which we'll get to in a second. Because the last time you were here, I think I got to taste some. I think they're radish, and I can't remember what the other thing. Maybe pea shoots or something like that.
I think it was broccoli.
Broccoli. Okay. Yes. All right. And so we'll get there. But as of our recording now, and since I just learned that there's a indoor market happening, what's headed to market kind of during this time of year?
A lot of microgreens, really. If we happen to have time, once April rolls around, you might see some early spring crops. I'm really hoping to get some things in. It really depends on the last frost. The last couple of years has been late April is the last frost for a lot of stuff, so it's been very uncooperative. But that's Nebraska weather. It's always a gamble. But whatever I can procure indoors which largely at this time is microgreens and sometimes some herbs too. So.
Gotcha. And so, yeah, so I think we've got to what carrot and cilantro is what came in with you today.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. And for those maybe that don't know what a microgreen is, in your words, what's a microgreen and what type of plants produce good microgreens?
Sure. So there are microgreens and there are sprouts out there. The end result is kind of the same, but there's a technical difference between microgreens and sprouts, and that being the medium by which is procured. So if it's procured aqueous, which means that could be hydroponic or aquaponic, that is a sprout. That is a little bit different category than micro. Micro is going to be done soil-based. And it's just a very convenient way to do vegetables. It's the exact same vegetable. Some people don't realize that, but it's just procured to the infancy stage, to the shoots, and then it is very nutrient dense at that stage. So you can actually just eat a little bit to get your daily dose of vegetables instead of eating a whole bunch of vegetables. So that's a very convenient way to do vegetables. People are now starting to figure this out. So I don't have to do as much education as I've noticed with people. They're some that do know, some that don't know. So it just kind of depends on when I'm out there in the market and I'm talking to people, what they gravitate towards vegetable wise. So and I kind of go from there.
Gotcha. And I think one thing I experienced last time when you had brought microgreens in was I guess probably in line with the density of the nutrients was also the density of the flavor, or the flavor that was related to the full-size vegetable. When you eat that little small thing, but you can get that kind of essence of what its grown-up counterpart would be.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the flavor profile are usually pretty potent just for a little bit. I know with these ones we've been kind of playing around with. Cilantro, the R&D department tried this with in a tomato soup, and it got phenomenal results. Very pleasantly surprised. It complemented the flavor profile really well, and at the tail end of the flavor delivery, it comes out very lemony. And then you can actually eat the little seed pods. Sometimes get attached to them still. That's actually the fruit of the cilantro. You can eat that too. And in the tomato soup, it was like a little burst of lemony candy in it. So it was really, really good.
So maybe some unexpected flavors even coming with those microgreens.
Definitely.
Wow. So for something like a cilantro, how long does it take to go from planting a something to I can harvest a something?
Sure. Largely depends on the plant. So cilantro typically is going to be 3 weeks without electroculture treatment. With treatment, we've got it down to about 2 weeks. Cilantro is a very finicky grow. A lot of microgreen growers don't even like to attempt to doing cilantro just because it is a very difficult one to procure. If it was a people personality, I would say it's very neurotic because it requires a lot of attention to make sure that it has the right amount of water. It can't be too much or too little. Otherwise, it can either dry out or go to mold. And you have to have the right amount of airflow, and you have to accommodate whether it's summer air or if it's winter air based on the humidity. So you really have to babysit this one.
Wow.
To get it done right. It took a while to really get it down. But we've gotten the process pretty much down to a science on how to get good yields out of it.
Wow, and Neurotic Cilantro sounds like a really good 90s college band name.
I probably just inspired somebody to.
That's awesome. So so getting the science down and tuned in. So if I recall, the indoor growing area is a former house or is house turned indoor farm.
Yeah.
And how do you control the variables like that, humidity and air temperature and things like that, for not only all the crops, but for something maybe that is as picky as cilantro? and maybe not affecting the other things that you're growing? Because I would assume the other microgreens maybe have their own proclivities on how they like to be treated.
So with the equipment for doing microgreens now, you got your trays, and you can do different various ones, whether they're perforated or not. With cilantro, requires a perforated tray with a bottom watering one, and then you can put a dome over it with a vent. So you can control how much moisture stays in there and whatnot, and basically itemize each tray according to what it needs. So you don't have to, say, change the entire macro environment of the inside necessarily, except just keep it basically at a flat line, ambient temperature, and then you can kind of go from there. So they're pretty easy to accustom each tray with the equipment.
So the macro growing environment is kept at a decent temperature or humidity that is generally plant friendly, and then those domes or those other little devices help you kind of fine tune for an individual crop then in that case.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And what is a good healthy indoor growing temperature, give or take a little bit?
Oh, typically about 70 to 72 degrees. That way you're not racking up, utility bills and stuff too with that. Because you can always modify the temperature of a tray. If a particular one wants higher than that, you can always put a warming mat underneath it and just go that route to maintain its temperature if it requires something a little bit warmer. The only thing I can think of that would want that is like a red vein sorrel, and if you've never had a red vein sorrel, that is arguably harder to grow than the cilantro, and it is considered a premium of the premium in terms of microgreens or a petite. You can grow it to various different stages, but it is a very prized example of a micro there.
Gotcha, because somebody's willing to put up with the all the nuances of trying to make it happen.
That one takes twice as long as the cilantro, and you put up with more. And just the seed is super expensive. I know at a discounted price from the supplier, a 25-pound bag of red vein sorrel is roughly about $3,600.
Oh my heavens! I would not have put a price tag like that on there. That's pretty high. Okay. Yeah. Goodness gracious. So, and then of course you want to be extra careful and make sure your $3,600 can turn into some type of profit. So you really have to be careful with it.
Lining up a buyer for that one is a tough one. It's more a prestigious, high end, usually client. They would want red vein sorrel. It's a lot of work. It's roughly 30 to 45 days just to procure that one. And then depending on how much they want, they're paying a good chunk of change. And right now restaurants I know are kind of on the downside with the economy and just trying to hang in there. So, not really doing that one right now. So
that makes sense. Yeah. It's, where you might have a premium or a luxury microgreen where maybe that the funding isn't quite there, maybe choose a different one that is, a little more accessible for some folks. You had said tray. How big is a tray, give or take a little bit, to give people an idea of maybe, when you plant a tray of cilantro or whatever, how big is that?
So it's about a 10 by 20 tray. So 20 long and about 10 the other dimension, or vector, I should say. And then they have half trays, so you can do smaller ones than that if somebody doesn't want a full-size tray quantity. Mm-hmm. So they can get that, and then they also have quarter-size trays now, which I don't really have to do too much of. The only thing I can think of is maybe doing, if somebody wanted cat grass, I can do a small one and cat grass and for their pets and whatnot. So, but yeah, various different sizes, but typically the full-size ones are usually what we do.
That makes sense. Well, especially when you're trying to do it at scale, so you have enough. If you sell out at the farmer's market, then you can go get some more next week or whatever there too. So about how many trays then does the indoor farm allow you to use?
We still got plenty of room, so we're not at capacitance. I just upped doing cilantro to about 30 trays if need be, for one or two particular restaurants that might want it. We're also looking to do more, but I'm just treating it as the demand comes in. I just go get the stuff, the equipment that I need, expand it that way. There's plenty of room for expansion yet. So
Typically, when you're choosing what to populate your trays with, I'm guessing there's probably sometimes when you just want to try to grow something to see how it works out because it's a curiosity. But do you often take the orders from like a restaurant or a supplier in advance and then begin the growing process, or are there some things that you just grow on a consistent basis because you'll know that it needs to be, provided regularly?
it's a little bit of both. Really, that's boils down to talking to, if I'm working with a chef or a restaurant, getting them to tell me what it is they need and how much they want, and just make it pretty black and white what they need. Then I can plan accordingly. Going to market, that's kind of a guesstimate. We try to rotate different micros out from each time, just to have a different variety, unless it's specified somebody wants, like with the carrot. Not a lot of people know about it, but I take it there and I get awesome response from it after sampling it, and I usually sell out pretty quick. Cilantro is a different animal, just because it's, some people got the soap gene and they don't like it's they either love it or hate it kind of deal. So I'll take some of that, and I may or may not, like the following, do that one, or rotate it out.
Gotcha. Okay, so that makes sense. And then, and I suppose the full growing process for whatever microgreen that is may depend on the microgreen itself. So if a chef requests a carrot, then you probably know about how long it takes to produce those carrot microgreens, and you can say, okay, no problem, chef, we can get it for you, but here's about when it's going to show up for you as well.
Yeah. I mean, I can get it down to within a day or two projected of when it needs. Of the two, between cilantro and carrot, I honestly really like working with the carrot more. They're very similar in terms of their setup, but the carrot is a lot more forgiving, and it's a little less time in blackout germination, and then once it's under light, it starts growing pretty fast.
For the seeding and harvesting process, if I recall, you harvest everything by hand, pair of scissors basically, and
Yeah.
go after it, huh? So, wow. So is the seeding process kind of similar? You just trowel out the trays, or do the trays come from the suppliers already planted, or how does that work?
Sure, I have to order in the soil, and the soil that I use is coco coir, which is just a derivative of coconuts after they've pressed them and processed them. And so they use that byproduct as a soil-based medium, and it is widely used by professional microgreen growers and a lot of different planters is coco coir, just because of its soil, or its moisture retention rate, and its resistance to mold is very high. So that's about as good as it gets in terms of a growing medium out there. But I usually order them in the big blocks, and it's about a 15-gallon block. And then I prep the trays, depending on if I want how much yield and how much seed I have to use. The cilantro is a little bit more finicky, so a lot of times I have to double stack them a little bit, and put a lot of soil and make sure they got the right amount of moisture and to get a proper yield. I don't have to do that with carrot. One layer is really all it requires, and I'm very grateful for that.
So once you harvest the microgreens, so you brought carrot and cilantro in today, so you harvest that with scissors there. Are you able to then reuse the soil? Do you have to do anything to it to grow the next thing, or do you have to plant the same crop in the same place? How does that work so that you're maximizing your soil, or do you have to refresh the soil completely before you grow again?
It gets a fresh round of soil, so like the old trays will basically get composted.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes you can, if you really want to get like a second round, sometimes a third. It depends on which micro, though. The ones that you can do that with are usually like pea shoots are an easy one to do that, to get a second and third. But you start to get diminished returns off that crop. So a lot of times I say one time and then put it in the compost cycle. So
That makes sense, I suppose, because I mean, you were mentioning the nutrient density of the microgreens, and so those little guys are pulling everything they can out of that soil. So you're only going to have so much nutrients in that soil before you need to refresh it. Otherwise, next plant can't get what they need.
yeah.
So, wow. So if somebody was going to do microgreens at home, obviously doing it on the scale that Omaha Urban Farmer is doing would be a big challenge. But let's say you wanted to start your own little garden at home. What's something that's kind of easy that somebody might be able to grow for themselves that might not be as frustrating, say, as cilantro or the red vein sorrel?
So probably some of the easier ones are like broccoli. Radish is a really easy one to do. They have pretty quick germination rates. So typically you can get it ready in about a week, usually with radish. Broccoli maybe a little bit longer. But some other easy ones. Sunflower is not bad to do. A lot of people like sunflower, especially if they like the taste of sunflower seed. So they'll eat the sunflower shoots. Those ones are pretty easy to do. And they're ready about 7 to 10 days typically.
I would have not thought about sunflower. My head would have gone to the giant, 8-foot thing. I don't need that in my house. It's going to be a little hard to manage.
Yeah. So the 8-footers are by the time they go to fiber, in the later shoot stage. I mean, you'll notice when they do or taste it if you do that. Once it starts to go fibrous, but in the more succulent stage, why the rabbits eat them all the time, and you understand why. Like it's nice and sweet and juicy and easy to eat that way.
Yeah. So regarding that, when they, for a sunflower, when it becomes fibrous or something starts to get a little bigger, and so you have this, germination time or whatever for it to sprout, at what point does it go from being microgreen to macrogreen?
That depends on which plant or microgreen you're doing. Like you can take some to more of a petite stage. Some lettuces that way. You can do that with pea shoots if you want. But the bigger you're going to get it, it's going to start to dilute its nutrients as it starts to get bigger and more voluminous. And take on mass. So it just you kind of have to know your plant and what it'll do at what stage, and a lot of it just comes with experience. So there are a handful of ones you can do that with.
From a application standpoint, so you pick up some microgreens at the farmer's market and you take them home, and my guess is you're not going to make a big salad bowl out of just microgreens. I mean, you could. Yeah. You certainly could. But I guess maybe what are some of your recommendations on how to best use a microgreen?
Sure. So like, for example, with the carrot, we found that one makes a really good seasoning with meat. With like hamburger or meatballs or even meatloaf or some other ones. It really lightens up the density of meat. Because and oftentimes when you eat meat, it tends to fill it up faster. But the carrot will kind of change its tune a little bit. It's a lot lighter, even though it's technically not. But and the flavor is a lot more, how do I want to put this, enhanced. And it complements really well. Like, I'm not a big meatball guy. I'm kind of in the middle of the road, kind of indifferent. But my wife put that in her meatball recipe, and it made it 10 times better.
Wow, just a flavor punch in there.
Like, I'm like, this is really good. I'm not a huge meatball guy. I love doing this one. So I like it when she adds the carrot to those things.
Well, speaking of carrot and flavor, I have never tried a carrot microgreen. I have definitely tried pea shoots, and then you had brought me a couple things last time, the radishes and the broccoli. Shall we try some in studio?
Definitely.
All right, what should I try first?
Let's since the carrot's in front of you.
Yeah.
Now both of these are good ones they have good aroma to it, so you can identify that if it's good or not just by the aroma. And then obviously the taste is going to speak for itself.
Okay.
Let me do this here.
Yeah, we got a couple of clam shells here, so Tim's gonna crack them open, and I'm gonna take a look at a tiny carrot here. So, yeah, boy, very small. And looking at it, I don't think you would know it's a carrot. Like I wouldn't be able to spot it and go, "Oh, that's carrot," right? So let's grab one of these guys here. So we've got good leafy structure here, and looks like it's a stem with just a couple of leaves there, and I'm dropping a few. So I'm gonna on mic here. We're gonna drop a couple of microgreens back and give them a taste. Here we go. Oh my goodness, yeah, you definitely get carrot.
Yeah.
There's no question. Wow, and it definitely has a very an early carrot flavor. So a good raw carrot, like you could absolutely bite that and 100% know it's a carrot.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no question there. Wow, that's very good. I could see how that would add some complexity, and especially you could sneak it into a meatball or something along those lines where maybe a full size root vegetable might not work as well in there, but get that flavor. Or if you just wanted to add, you could have a very surprising salad too, maybe a spinach salad, but you throw some carrot microgreens on top, and it's like, oh, and all of a sudden you got carrots in there. How long do the carrots take to go from planting to about the size that we have here?
That one was about 2 weeks with electroculture treatment. Gotcha. So normally, though, without treatment, you're probably looking at about 3 weeks.
This sprout here looks like we do have a little bit of a seed on there still, and so edible and a nice little flavor punch to go with your, maybe even a little bit of texture, I would assume, because a little crunchier there.
Yeah.
So awesome. And then we have cilantro here also.
We do have cilantro.
So I'm gonna close.
A lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this one.
So, and this is our one that takes a lot more maintenance. So our cilantro leaves here definitely not quite as fanned out, I suppose, as a full grown cilantro, right? So these are more like, it looks like a little helicopter that
those are just the baby leaves. So it's just the step before the true leaf stage. So if you let go a little bit longer, you'll start to see a true leaf come out of that.
And wow, you were mentioning kind of the scent that comes from opening the clamshell without even getting anywhere close to my nose. It's like, wow, there's just this burst of this like herbaceous flavor coming off of here. Let me knock back a little cilantro here as well. What's your do you have a favorite application for the cilantro microgreens, or anything kind of like I guess the carrots and the meatballs? Quite a cool revelation there.
Yeah. I mean, the latest one in tomato soup was pretty phenomenal, but we've also put it on sandwiches. Cilantro has a lot of unique properties to it. It's also a natural detoxer, so that'll pull a lot of heavy metals out of your system. Just a lot of different applications for it besides, salsa and things like that. So raw cilantro is very good for you.
Those are really good. The leaf size a little bit bigger than the carrot that we were talking about there, and I think you had mentioned the planted the seeds, if you will, of kind of a lemon essence in that cilantro, and I do get a little bit of that. There's a definite, no question, cilantro. However, I would say that the carrot is distinctively carrot. Seems to me to be related to its big brother carrot.
Yeah.
Where the cilantro, the microgreen, has a few more nuanced flavors that I don't know that I would pick up in a full-grown cilantro. There's other elements in there.
Yeah.
Wow. So in the growing process, so we were saying earlier that the nutrient density here is very high. As the plant grows, the flavor compounds, how do they change as the plant gets bigger? Is it just that the nutrients move out, or I don't know. I don't know what the science is behind that on why I taste lemon here in something small and maybe not in the full-grown plant.
Right. Usually with the full-grown plants, your profile is going to be a lot more diluted, so you won't have as much concentration. It's probably technically still there, but you just don't have the sensory, or it doesn't have the magnitude at that dilution to really kick in that it does at that stage.
Wow. That's really awesome. This is so fun because both times that you have been in here, I've had different sensory experiences and different flavors than I have had before. So that is very, very cool. And what a neat way to, especially like with either one here, but like with the carrot, where you could add that to something where somebody's going to bite into that, not see an orange root vegetable, but taste carrot, or the cilantro in this case, where it's like, hey, I'm going to give you essence of cilantro, but I'm going to add this different little layer to it as well. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and what else besides these two? So these were harvested. Oh my goodness, you harvested these really fresh here, because I see a date with today's date on here. What else is growing right now?
We still have some cilantro. In fact, after this recording, I got to go start another round for the upcoming market that we have to do. So we'll probably do some pea shoots, some broccoli, purple and red radish, or just one or the other. Probably put some more carrot in there too.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Are there any local restaurants at the moment that come to mind where Omaha Urban Farmer microgreen might appear that somebody could try on a dish?
Sure, definitely. So we do a lot with Gather in Omaha downtown. They have their own in-house farm, but they can't do everything. So a lot of times they'll work with some other vendors. I happen to be one of them. So I do a lot of cilantro for them.
That's right, because Gather has a pretty big hydroponic growing system, right? And so early on in the show, I learned from you that the difference between, say, a sprout and a microgreen is the microgreens are actually grown in soil, where the sprouts are grown in more of the hydroponic or aquaponic type culture. Does Gather also do microgreens, or are they pretty much exclusively sprouts?
No, they actually have some microbes in their farm. They use a different method to procure. Last time I was down there, which was a while ago, but a lot of times they were using the hemp mats, so it's a little bit more open. In my experience, I've learned that it's better. You'll get a better success rate if you cover the seeds versus leaving them open faced, because then you're a little more vulnerable to mold and whatnot. And a lot of that's going to also depend on what the humidity level is. So I know they have heavier humidity down in their farm too, because they're down in the basement and whatnot, and they're already running hydros, so plenty of water.
I haven't had a chance to dine down there yet. Have you had any of their full entrees yet featuring your microgreens?
Honestly, I haven't either, so it's kind of a mystery to me yet what they're all doing with that. But I've had family go down together, and they have very good response. So I know they do a very good job with a quality meal.
So speaking to our audience out there, since I haven't been there yet, if anybody within the sound of my voice goes down to Gather or has tried some of the dishes with microgreens or anything else, shoot me a message on social media, or you can email us saturdayomaha@gmail.com. I'd be curious to see what you think, and you may have encountered Tim's microgreens on the dish that you've had. So maybe if it tastes a little like carrot and it was unexpected, or tastes a little bit like cilantro, but has a lemon pop, maybe you had a Omaha Urban Farmer microgreen. That could be very, very cool.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So besides the winter market, so depending on when people are listening to this, let's somebody listens to the podcast later in the year or something like that and needs to find some microgreens, how does somebody get Omaha Urban Farmer microgreens or any other vegetables that you're growing?
Sure, a couple different options. We have a web store at omahaurbanfarmer.com that will get updated with depending on where the season's at. And we're kind of in that transition right now to put some of the seasonal stuff on the list as it becomes available. But the microgreens, and we also have a microgreen CSA, which is basically a subscription for 4 intervals at various different sizes over an 8-week period, distribution-wise. Otherwise, you can also find us at Ellsworth Crossing.
Oh, sure.
So we got some micros in there, and that's a great place to support local, and which I recommend to anyone and everyone. This is one of the most important things that we can do is support local in this day and age for various different reasons.
I love the fact that your microgreens can be found at a local restaurant or at Ellsworth Crossing, which is such a fun place. We've had them on the show as well, and they're so hyper focused, to use the word, on Nebraska and Iowa produce and things like that, and it's really neat to see those things be available. And also encouraging the small business person and entrepreneur and somebody like yourself that is like, hey, I'm going to put a farm in the middle of Omaha and bring some awesome microgreens and things to people. That's a really neat pursuit, and I think it's so nice that we, the populace, then can support your efforts and craft, and you battling the nuances of growing cilantro for the rest of us, so we don't have to, but we can still eat it.
Definitely. It's a work of art. I will say this like a friend. There's not enough farmers out there right now, and there's a generation that needs to be fulfilled up and coming in the future. And I hope I lead the way, and I hope I inspire other people to take up the mantle too. But there's nothing easy about it. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that whatsoever. Like, I don't know what you'll see in 1 year to the next. The elements will be thrown at you, and you have to learn to just persevere through it.
Pun intended here for the budding farmer. How did you get your start? If somebody wants to do this in the future, what's a good thing to just get moving in that direction if somebody wanted to farm like you are?
A lot of the successful microgreen farmers that in the last couple of years just started out as a basement operation. Very low budget. You just have to get your materials, start out, line up clientele, depending on where you're at. I know on the coasts that microgreens was a really big thing a couple of years ago. People started figuring out they liked the local co-op, and a good majority of like the clientele that they did were just customer directs, and they made a lot of money doing it. And but they also service some restaurants and chefs too. We're here in the Midwest, and for some reason we're the last to figure things out, and I don't like that. I think we should not be the last to figure things out,
especially when it comes to farming. We kind of do that around here, but yeah.
Yeah, we're like a farming capital, so to speak. This is our thing. But anybody can really do a microgreen operation, start up on a low budget. Besides just the farming aspect, I tell people, whatever business it is, you have to learn some business and commercial principles. Get your mind right, invest in your mind, because the sharper your mind is, the odds of success will be greater for you because of whatever gets thrown at you.
If somebody were to look for a book or an online resource to learn a little bit more, do you have a favorite? I'd love to kick back with a good book every once in a while.
The Living Soil Handbook by Jesse Frost. He runs the No-Till Growers channel. He put that book together as a culmination of, I believe, about 2 decades or so of farming and market garden style farming. So it's a good place to start to learn about living soil systems and that method of just doing rockstar farming and ecologically sound growing. So
thank you for that recommendation. Thank you for bringing in your hard work. The studio right now, by me anyway, smells like delicious microgreens. I have the cilantro container open, which I'll shut it here in just a moment, but it smells great. I always learn something when you stop in. I get to experience something differently with my different senses here, be that flavor, sight, smell, all these things. So thank you so much, Tim Fonfara from Omaha Urban Farmer, for coming and talking with us.
Always a pleasure, and hopefully we can do like an on-site on the farm later on too. So
that'd be cool.
That would be really cool.
Get a little dirty and try some stuff fresh out of the ground. That sounds fantastic. Well, Tim, thanks again. And as we say, until we eat again, stay hungry. Maybe go get some microgreens. Bye.
Our show is recorded and produced by Saturday Omaha. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, as well as email SaturdayOmaha@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and stay hungry.
Saturday Omaha.
Eat this.